Most people think the goodbye message is the last move. They think the words you choose at the end are the message he carries with him. They think if you write it carefully enough or message him once with just the right temperature of cold, he will feel the loss the way you need him to feel it. They think the goodbye is the punctuation at the end of the story. And here's something most people don't see coming. The goodbye is not the punctuation. The goodbye is the door. And what you do in the doorway is what either undoes him or keeps him exactly where comfort has left him. I'm talking tonight to the woman who has been sitting with her phone for weeks, sometimes months, drafting a message in her head she never sends. Rewriting it at midnight, deleting it at dawn, rehearsing it in the shower, then telling herself she doesn't need to send it. She has rehearsed every version. The cold one, the dignified one, the one with one single lowercase line that pretends she doesn't care, the version where she finally tells him what he did, the version where she wishes him well in a tone so even he'll know she means the opposite. She has typed it on her notes app more than once. She has agonized over whether to include the question mark at the end of the longest sentence she ever almost sent him. Here's the truth. He has thought about her sending it every single day. He has run the simulation in his head. He has predicted the cadence of her words. He has imagined the soft bitterness of her voice, the polite cruelty of a final sentence, the way she might say his name one last time as if his name were made of glass, and she was the one finally setting it down. He has prepared himself for that message. He has not prepared himself for the absence of one. Let me be clear about one thing. The goodbye message is not the weapon most people think it is. It is actually the safety net he has been quietly relying on. As long as he believes you will send something, even something wounded, even something cold, even something final, he is still being witnessed by you. He is still the leading man in a story that hasn't ended. He is still being told in the back of his mind that you are somewhere in the apartment of his life with the light on, waiting to speak. The moment you remove yourself from that apartment, not loudly, not bitterly, not in any way that gives him a narrative to chew on, the room he has been keeping warm in his imagination goes cold. That is the moment he begins to feel the weight of you for the first time, and it is not the moment he is ready for. Picture this. It is 11 at night. You have not unfollowed him. You have not blocked him. You have not said a thing. The phone is face down on the nightstand. You are in the kitchen washing a single glass. He is 2 miles away, or 2,000, or one flight, lying in his own bed, and the silence he thought he wanted is no longer the silence that lets him relax. It is the silence that does something else. Let me walk through what that silence is doing, slowly, one piece at a time, because this is where most women give up too soon. They go silent for 3 days and then panic. They go silent for a week and crack. They go silent until the discomfort becomes louder than the dignity, and then they reach. And the reaching hands him back the entire narrative. He exhales. He knew you'd call. He is not undone. He is relieved. He does not pursue. He does not want. He just resumes being the man who got away with it. Now let me explain something slowly, because I want you to hear this part almost clinically. Avoidance. And tonight I am speaking to the woman who has been hurt by one of them, by the man who couldn't meet her eye when he said the thing, by the man who used the word space as if space were a place you could vacation in, by the man who said, "I'm just not where you are," as if geography were the issue and not his own interior. Avoidants survive on choreography. They have a choreography they have been running since long before they met you. They pull close. They pull away. They schedule a yearning. They schedule an extinction. They ration their own emotional capacity as if it was something a financial advisor had warned them to limit. They do this not because they don't feel. They do it because feeling for them has always felt like drowning. They learned early, somewhere, that if they don't control the temperature of intimacy, the temperature of intimacy will control them. So they control it. They warehouse their own affection. They ration it out in small, careful, almost theatrical gestures. And the moment a woman starts to require more than they are willing to provide, instead of facing the woman or facing themselves, they exit, even sweetly. They say the kindest, softest, most devastating sentences a person can say. They tell her she is wonderful. They tell her she deserves more. They tell her they are not the man for her. And every single word they say is calibrated to make her feel like he acted out of generosity. He did not. He acted out of preservation. Here's what most people miss about that exit. They think he has let her go. He has not. He has repositioned her. He has moved her from the kitchen of his life to the window. She didn't notice because the window was painted warmly enough. He called every few days. He checked in. He liked her photograph. He kept the inside joke alive. He made her feel chosen without actually being chosen. He made her wait for a version of himself he would never produce. And the worst part, the part you need to sit with for a long moment, is that she agreed to this. She agreed to it because she thought agreement was the same as grace. She thought she was being the bigger person. She thought she was giving him room. She thought she was protecting a love that needed air. What she was actually doing was teaching him that her self-worth was negotiable, that her standard was a suggestion, that the bare minimum he was offering, the warm text once a week, the half smile when he saw her, the innuendo that he still cared, was enough to keep her pacified in his orbit without him having to commit to anything. And once a man learns that about a woman, he is not going to evolve. He is going to repeat. He is going to do the move he just did, again, but with more confidence. Because he has the proof in his pocket that no matter how little he offers, she will keep the seat warm for him. I want to pause on that for a second, because I don't want you to hear this as cruelty. I want you to hear it as the man simply doing what worked. He is not evil. He is pattern. And pattern, when uninterrupted, becomes choreography. And choreography, when uninterrupted long enough, becomes identity. So when I tell you that your goodbye message is not what undoes him, that is what I mean. The message, however perfectly worded, however dignified, however brief, is still inside the choreography. It still tells him, in some quiet register he is listening to, that he is still being talked about in your inner life with enough intensity to warrant a final production. He doesn't know what to do with the production. He reads it. He feels a flicker of guilt. He may even cry a little alone on a Tuesday. But then his pattern eats the moment. He returns to his habits. He returns to the version of himself that needs no one. He does not pursue. He does not chase. He thanks you for the closure. And he is, by Friday, the same man he was on Monday. Now, I want to take you into the part of this conversation where most coaches lose their nerve. I am going to tell you what is actually happening inside him when you don't send it. I'm going to walk through his interior the way a doctor walks through a scan. Calmly, clinically, without softening anything to protect your feelings, because your feelings don't need protecting. Your feelings have been taking the hit for months. Tonight, it's someone else's turn. Imagine him the morning after the silence begins. He goes to open Instagram. He's used to a small offering there. A photograph of your morning. A reel you saved. Something. There's nothing. Not because you blocked him. Not because you deleted him. But because you simply haven't been in the mood to perform. Your grid hasn't moved. He doesn't even realize he noticed. He scrolls, he moves on, he does this again the next day. Same quiet, absence, same hollow slot where your woman used to be. Imagine him at lunch with a friend he trusts more than he trusts himself. The friend asks how he's doing. He says fine. He does this by reflex. Then, somewhere between first and the second coffee, he says, almost in spite of himself, that he hasn't heard from her this week. He says it lightly. He says it the way a man reports the weather. And the friend, who has been politely unimpressed with him for the last several months, says nothing. That silence is louder than the one he has been enjoying all week. He starts to wonder why she's not chasing. And here's the thing. The wondering is what begins to undo him. He didn't expect you to be quiet. He expected you to chase, to send the soft message, the warm follow-up, the careful question about his week, the photograph designed to make him smile at 2 p.m. in the middle of a meeting where he would once have up at the sight of you. He expected that because that is what previous women have done. That is what his ex did. That is what the woman before you did. That is what you did for the first 10 weeks after he walked away. You called. You reached. You made it easy for a man who had been treating you as a complication to keep you exactly where he wanted you, close enough to feel chosen, far enough to feel free. He didn't expect you to be the one who closed the window. He expected you to keep heating the room. He didn't expect you to stop texting first. He expected you to keep sending the messages he could reply to on his schedule. Sunday evening, after his gym, after his mates, after the part of his day where he had finished being a man alone and was ready, briefly, to be a man with someone. He expected that pattern to keep turning. He didn't expect the pattern to stop. When the pattern stops, when his phone does not ping from her name, the room that he thought was simply decorated in her absence becomes a room he is now alone in. The room he thought could simply do without her is the same room that begins to feel incomplete without her. He didn't expect that. He didn't plan for that. He didn't rehearse for it. He didn't expect you to keep living. He expected you to stall. He expected the breakup to have made you smaller, quieter, less present in your own life. He expected to hear, through the soft gossip of mutual friends, that you weren't doing well. He expected you to be a story he could feel a gentle, manageable regret over. He didn't expect you to be the same woman he walked away from, only more interesting. He didn't expect you to be the version of you who laughs louder in public, who wears the color you never quite wore around him, who goes to the dinner he wouldn't have liked, who takes the trip he would have talked you out of. He expected your sparkle to dim. He expected your interior to go cold. When your interior does the opposite, when it gets warmer without him being allowed inside it, he starts to feel something he has never trained for. He feels replaced, not dramatically, not furiously, just quietly. The slow creeping recognition that the woman he left is not the woman who still needs him. And that's the moment his confidence, for the first time in your relationship, leaves the room. He didn't expect that. He expected to stay comfortable. He didn't expect you to mean it. He expected the quiet to be a tactic, a strategy, a manipulation, a small theatrical gesture meant to draw him back. He is so used to the theater of being pursued that he cannot conceive of a woman whose silence is not leverage. He assumed, and he assumed correctly until you didn't, that no woman could simply be done with him quietly, without a callback, without a final curtain speech. When he begins to suspect that you have actually, internally, finished, he begins to feel the floor of his day get slanted. That is the moment he is most likely to do something. Reach out, perform remorse, perform a softer version of himself, perform the version of himself he should have performed the first time. And if you take the bait at that moment, you have just rewarded the wrong behavior in the right timeline. You have taught a man that the very pattern he used to abandon you is the pattern that brings you back. You have made his worst habits the most effective tool he has ever owned over you. He did not expect to learn that lesson, but you taught it to him by reaching back. Let me walk through, slowly, what the silence does over the course of weeks. I want you to be patient with me here, because if you don't understand the timeline, you'll break the silence too early. You'll panic on day 5. You'll crack on day 9. You'll send a message on day 13 because the discomfort has its own gravity and you are not used to gravity without him inside it. So let me show you the architecture of his reckoning so that when you feel the pull, you can name it and you can refuse it on purpose. Week 1, the relief. He feels the absence of your drama the way a man feels the absence of a headache. He sleeps slightly better. He does not have to manage anyone's expectations of him. He does not have to perform warmth when he does not feel warm. He is, momentarily, the version of himself he has always wanted to be. Unencumbered, unobserved, free. He will go out more this week. He will see a friend. He may even date the experiment of an evening with an old flame he never quite closed out. He will feel, for the first time in a long time, the lightness of a room that has no woman in it, expecting him to be something. This week, the silence you are keeping is doing almost nothing to him. He is the hero of his own little story again. He is breathing. Don't panic. This is not the moment the silence is doing real work. This is the week he is using up his old supply. Week 2, the noticing. This is the week something small begins to shift. He opens his phone and his thumb, almost unconsciously, goes to where your name used to live. He does not send anything. He just notes the absence. He begins to construct the smallest possible narrative about your quiet. Maybe you are hurt. Maybe you are trying to be dignified. Maybe you are proving something. He doesn't yet suspect that you are simply living. He suspects that you are performing. He is partially right. You are performing, but for yourself, not for him. He hasn't figured this out yet. He will. It will unsettle him more than anything you could ever say. This week, your silence is now registering. He is starting to feel, very faintly, that there is a woman somewhere in the city who used to need him and is now, apparently, not making herself available. He's not chasing yet. He's just aware. Week 3, the inquiry. This is when the small questions begin. He may send a message disguised as something else. He may ask about a shared friend. He may check on something logistical. He may say something generic. He may like a photograph that is older than he should like. Every single one of these is a man leaning slightly toward a door he is not yet ready to open. He is testing the temperature. He is checking to see if the silence will hold or if you will smile at the first gesture. If you smile at the first gesture, even a small one, even a polite one, you have just confirmed his theory of you. He will not respect the theory. He will simply relax inside it. He will return to his old rhythm. But if you do not smile, if you do not perform the warmth he has been taught to expect, his inquiry will not stop. It will intensify. It will begin to take the shape of a man who has realized the room he thought was simply unoccupied has somewhere in the last 11 days grown colder than he can quite explain. Week 4 and beyond. The reckoning. This is where the man begins to feel the unique, very specific gravity of having let go of someone who did not let go of themselves in the process. He begins to grieve in tiny, invisible ways. The grief looks like distraction. The grief looks like a wasted evening. The grief looks like a coffee order he suddenly remembers you used to make for him. The grief looks like a strange loneliness at the exact hour of the day where he used to call you. He does not call you. He doesn't have the language for what he is missing. He doesn't even know how to name the absence. But he is feeling it. Quietly, in a register of himself he has never had to look at before. He begins to understand, slowly, painfully, almost against his own preferences, that he lost something he cannot replace by being smoother, by being funnier, by being more available with someone new. He lost you. And the version of you he lost did not run after him. Now, I want to talk about what your silence is doing to you. Because the second reason women break silence too early is not the man. It is the self. It is the loneliness of your own evenings. It is the strange, disorienting experience of not texting him. It is the feeling of being inside a week that doesn't include his voice. It is the strange gravity of your own empty hand at the moment of the night when you would have been reaching for him. I want to talk about that. I want to walk through it. Because the discomfort you feel in your own body is not a sign that the silence isn't working. The discomfort is a sign that it is. Here's what your silence is doing to you. And I need you to hear me on this carefully. Your silence is not making you smaller. Your silence is making you more honest. The version of you that reaches for him every Friday evening is the version of you that hasn't yet begun to develop a relationship with her own life. The version of you who sends the polite message the next morning to confirm the night before is the version of you who is still outsourcing her self-worth to his responsiveness. The version of you who holds the silence for 30 days, 60 days, until her own hand has stopped shaking. That is the version of you who is becoming a person, not the woman he rejected, not the woman he chose and discarded, not the woman who rehearsed her goodbye in 12 drafts on her notes app, the woman who finally, gently refused to send any of them because she understood, somewhere underneath the obsession, that her dignity was not a hostage to be ransomed for his attention. He didn't expect you to be that woman. He expected you to be the one who sent paragraph 3 of draft 7. He expected you to be available, eventually, on his schedule. He did not expect you to be here, calmly, in the quiet idiom of yourself, carrying your own weight, without drafting it into a message to him. He didn't expect that, and his recognition of it, when it comes, will not feel like triumph. It will feel like something closer to panic, the slow panic of a man who is beginning to suspect he broke something he cannot reassemble by being kinder in a text he sends on a Wednesday afternoon. He didn't expect the woman he left to be the woman she was always going to become, just without him. Here's the part nobody's going to like hearing, but I want to say it anyway. You have to stay through the awkward. The first 2 weeks of your silence will not feel like healing. They will feel like withdrawal. They will feel like quitting something. They will feel like the first weeks of any substance you used to use to soften the edges of your own evenings. You will have, almost nightly, the urge to send the message. You will rehearse it at the most disarming hours, brushing your teeth, driving home, pouring the wine, putting the kids to bed, doing the one small chore he used to help with. The urge will come in waves. Some weeks the waves will be small. Some weeks the waves will feel like they are about to take you. You will, in those moments, feel the strangest mixture of self-pity and self-hatred and small, burning anger at yourself for caring this much about someone who cared this little. That anger is not the enemy. That anger is the thing that begins to teach you what you are owed. That anger is the beginning of your standard. Don't medicate it. Don't text through it. Don't explain it away. Sit beside it. Let it teach you what it came to teach you. Let it show you what you have been tolerating. And here's what that anger will begin to do, almost imperceptibly, in the weeks after. It will begin to rewire what you are willing to accept. You will startle at the way your friends describe their relationships. You will notice, for the first time, the choreography of your older brother's marriage, the choreography of your mother's friendships, the choreography of how the woman in your office talks about her own husband. You will notice, with a kind of fresh-eyed grief, the difference between the women who have been negotiated down and the women who have never accepted the down. You will see that the difference is not beauty, not charm, not cleverness, not the particular perfume or the particular career, but the willingness, the quiet, almost stubborn willingness to be the woman who would rather be alone than be the woman who keeps warming a room that will not claim her. That willingness is the entire architecture of your new life. It is not loud. It is not Instagram quote loud. It is the loud private decision you make every evening in the absence of his text. I chose me. Tonight again. Tonight I will choose me. Now I want to slow down and walk you through the re-entry, because the goal of your silence is not to be a woman who never speaks to him again. The goal of your silence is to become the woman who could. That is a different woman. That is a woman whose quiet is no longer anxious. That is a woman whose quiet is no longer the pause before another reach. That is a woman whose quiet is a home she lives in without apology. And when you get to that version of yourself, when your quiet is no longer the silence of an absence, but the silence of a presence, a quiet that is full rather than empty, that is settled rather than waiting, that is oriented around your own life rather than around his calendar, re-entry becomes different. Not because you will necessarily go back to him, but because you will be capable of choosing him. And a woman capable of choosing a man is a fundamentally different dynamic than a woman waiting to be chosen. Re-entry is not texting first. Re-entry is not a soft photograph. Re-entry is not a perfectly crafted message sent 3 months later that pretends nothing happened. Re-entry is the slow, deliberate rebuilding of dignity in every area of your life. It begins with the friendships you let go quiet during the months you were orbiting him. Call the friend. Pick up the phone. Do not perform the conversation. Just call. Ask the question. Listen. Be present in someone else's life for an hour. Move your body. Not for him. Not for the next man's potential gaze. Move your body because it has been carrying the weight of a man who did not have the decency to carry you. And it has forgotten what it feels like to be moved without obligation. Walk. Swim. Dance in your kitchen. Move the limbs he used to make you forget you had. Revive the friendships he made you turn down. Go to the dinner he would have talked you out of. Say yes, slowly, to the small invitations. Say no, cleanly, to the invitations that ask for any version of you that pretends to be smaller than you are. Repair the finances he may have made you foolish about. Repair the apartment. Move the couch. Buy the lamp. Change the sheets. Take the bookshelf he helped you pick out and rearrange it so it doesn't feel like the room he last sat in. Drink water. Get the sleeps back. Let the sleeps come back. The first week, the sleep is gone. The second week, the sleep is restless. The third week, the sleep comes back unevenly. The fourth week, the sleep comes back almost fully, and you realize that you haven't, in some nights, dreamed of him. That is a milestone. Mark it quietly. Don't post it. Just notice it. Retie the loose ends. The loose ends are not just logistical. The loose ends are the small ambient beliefs you absorbed from him. That you were too much. That you asked for too much. That you cared too loudly. That you felt too deeply. That your intuition was a problem. That your SWOT standards were a thing to be negotiated. Retie those. Pull each one out. Look at it. Decide calmly whether it is a belief that belongs to you or a belief he installed for his own comfort. Drop the ones that belong to him. Keep the ones that belong to you. And if you cannot tell which is which for many of you will be the honest answer, give yourself time. The clarity comes. It does not come overnight. It comes slowly, the way your own handwriting returns after you've been pressing too hard on a pen. Then, somewhere in the middle of all of that re-entry, not as a stunt, not as a tactic, not as choreography, your life begins to feel less like an absence of him and more like an audience with yourself. He becomes, almost without announcement, a smaller thought. Not because you have suppressed him, because you have outgrown the room he was in. You no longer need the dynamic he offered. You no longer need the warm window with the cold seat. You are not orbiting. You are not in his narrative. You are not in the spot where his light still partly reaches. You are in your own narrative. And your own narrative has its own lights, its own rooms, its own quiet evenings where the dinner is good and the wine is chosen by you and the company is yours. And then, and only then, if he reaches, you meet him not as the woman he rejected, but as the woman he could not have prepared for. You meet him with the same quiet the silence taught you. You are warm, but not rushed. You are available, but not anxious. You are present, but not waiting. You do not perform the woman who doesn't care. You do not perform the woman who cares desperately. You meet him as the woman who has, finally, a relationship with herself that does not depend on his presence in her evening. He's not the leading man in your story when you meet him again. He's a man who has shown up at the door of a woman, and a woman whose quiet is no longer waiting is not the woman he prepared his choreography for. She is a different problem entirely. A better problem. A problem he cannot simply manage with warmth on Sunday. A problem he has to actually face. A reset, a rebuild, a return you don't owe him. Here's a question I want to write down here. What did he expect your silence to be? He expected it to be a strategy, a manipulation, a small theatrical gesture meant to bring him back. And what was your silence actually? Just your life, just your evening, just your kitchen, washing a single glass, putting the phone face down, going to bed at a reasonable hour. Just the small, plain, dignified act of a woman who has decided she is allowed to be the main character of her own night. That was the message. The goodbye you never sent. The goodbye that, every day that it doesn't arrive, gets louder in a room he thought he had turned off. He didn't expect that. He didn't expect the absence to outweigh his words. He didn't expect the quiet to outperform his choreography. He didn't expect the woman he left to be the woman who simply, one morning, didn't open the door again. And here's the truth I want you to walk away with. The goodbye message is not what he fears. The goodbye message is what he already knows how to receive. He has received goodbye messages from women before. He has received them politely. He has received them emotionally. He has received them with the exact right tone of regret he was supposed to register. He has filed them under lessons learned. He has thanked the woman, in some quiet way, for the dignity of her exit. He has moved on. He has every time moved on. The only version of you he has never been able to move on from is the version of you who simply, one day, was not there anymore in any form he could write a narrative about. The woman who did not explain herself. The woman who did not arrange one last sentimental gesture. The woman who did not give him a story to feel gently bad about. The woman who simply calmly was not available. He didn't expect that. He has no choreography for that. He has no response for that. He has nothing to do with that, except, eventually, to walk back to the door and admit, quietly, to no one but himself, that he has been wrong about what he was willing to lose. Your silence after rejection isn't weakness, and it isn't strategy. It's the loudest boundary he will ever hear you set. It's the version of you whose quiet is no longer negotiating with his habit. It's the version of you whose dignity is not a hostage to his temperature. It's the version of you who has, finally, become a person who can hold a room without being asked into one. You are not losing him by being quiet. You are learning what he was actually willing to keep. And he is learning, slowly, in the architecture of his own quiet evenings, that what he was willing to keep was never enough. Hold the silence. Hold the dignity. Hold the standard. Hold yourself. The message that undoes him is the one you never send. And the woman who sends nothing is the one he cannot, in the end, forget.